boys and girls. Today we're going to focus on lesson 9.1, which happens to be about using percentages in real life and equivalencies between fractions, decimals, and percents. So what I want you to think about is, where have you seen percentages before? Most of you are probably going to think about your grades, but we see them in real life all over the place. We see them in stores when they are having some kind of sale. We see them on TV when they're advertising, sometimes for a commercial, or maybe on the news where they're giving a story about a certain percentage of people have done this or that. We see them in newspaper stories and advertising. So there's lots of different places that we see percentages. So that's why we're going to focus on those in this particular lesson, because we actually need to know how to use them. So when we think about a percent is a percent or part of something, similar to when we talked about fractions, because a fraction was a part of something or a part of the whole. Well, a percentage is also a part of the whole or a part of something. So when we think of something, we're referring to that whole 100% or the entire object. It could be the entire collection of objects. So let's say that you had a collection of Beanie Babies. Maybe you had 90% of all of the Beanie Babies that have ever been made. So that could be used as an entire collection. When we're talking about the whole or the 100%, we could be talking about sports-related activities. So maybe it would be free throws or something like that. Home runs if you play baseball. So sometimes there's percentages given in sports as well. So I want to focus on our 10 by 10 grid. And as you know, with a 10 by 10 grid, we have 100 little squares inside that grid. And if we were going to look at this particular grid and I would ask you what percent might that be, we're going to say that this is 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 1, 2. So this would be 62 squares out of 100, or 62%, okay? Because it's out of 100. If we would look at this one, and we can kind of think of each of those squares as 1/100th, I have 1, 2, 3, 4 out of 100. So that would mean that my fraction would be 4 over 100. My percent would be 4%. Now that would be a little bit different if we write that as a decimal, because if we say 4/100ths, then as a decimal we would write it like this, because this is my 10th place and this is my 100th place. And if my fraction is 4/100ths, my decimal has to say 4/100ths. Here we have another grid, and this one has 10, 20 squares colored in. So this would be 20 over 100, or 20%. Okay, so the main thing that we want to remember with percent is it's a part of something, and that something has to be a whole. So the whole could be an object, it could be a collection of objects. So again, these 10 by 10 grids come in handy when thinking about how to make those fractions turn into percents, especially if we have a denominator of 100. So it makes it a lot easier to do that when we're trying to figure out that percentage. So please remember to keep this in mind when you are trying to calculate or figure out what the percentage is if you're given a fraction. And equivalent fractions are going to come in handy when you do that. So we will talk about that next time. See ya!